Hello, Mary Mead. So today I want to review a book. The book I want to review is this one. Reincarnation for the Millions by Susy Smith. This is an older book. It's from 1969, I think. Let's check. I'm pretty sure that's when it was written. 1967. I was wrong. But it's basically late 60s. And these were types of books that you generally got in convenience stores or from catalogs of various paranormal topics. And some of those books are really good and some not so much. So what is this? Well, from what it says on the book, it's published by Dell, by the way, that made a lot of these books. It says, "This book made me believe." And I can't really see how that has anything to do with the book, because really, from that you would suspect that, yeah, here we have a lot of examples of reincarnation stories and such, but no, that's not what's in this. What's in this is basically it's a primer on various beliefs in reincarnation and some introductions to some famous spiritualists and occultists who have had reincarnation as part of their beliefs, as well as some arguments against reincarnation from some spiritual paths that do not have that as part of their beliefs. So it talks about Edgar Cayce, Madame Blavatsky, and several others. And yet, in and of itself, it's quite interesting, and I think that if you have never really gotten into any literature about reincarnation, then this book might be good for you. It is a good primer to the topic, and it does present both arguments for and against reincarnation, which is nice, and it lets you draw your own conclusions. Of course, it's a small book. It's, I don't know, 120 pages or so. Let's check. 156. So there's a limit to how much information you are able to fit into such a small space. But for what it is, it's a decent primer to what's out there of information about the topic of reincarnation. So let's go through some of the let's go through the index. We have 1, the search for immortality, which is basically an introduction to the topic. Then we have Don't Think of Me as Dead, which which is basically a continuation of the introduction and talks about spirit communications, mostly. Then you have the appeal of the reincarnation, which sort of introduces the topic of the book. Then we have what part of the individual reincarnates, which discusses basically what are a soul. Is it just the soul that reincarnates, or is there some part of this personality that does as well? Then we have Madame Blavatsky, the high priestess of modern occultism, which introduces Blavatsky and doesn't exactly paint her in a very positive light. And we have Edgar Cayce, the man who could read karma, which discusses a little bit about the Cayce and some of his readings. We have Allan Kardec, the man who worked with spirits, which again we have somebody who is more when it comes to spirits than reincarnation. We have more enthusiasts of rebirth theory. What does the Bible say about reincarnation, which discusses if there's anything in the Bible that can be seen as supporting reincarnation theory, which there is, though not a lot. Then you have Emanuel Swedenborg. Yeah. I can't talk today. Emanuel Swedenborg, Pipeline to the Spirit World. And he's not so much into reincarnation. We have a bit of two sides of the coin here. those who said no to reincarnation, which discusses basically some, ascended masters, but those kinds of people that, in the belief, had a chance to get out of the reincarnation wheel, but choose to stay to help others. We have more non-believers, which is other viewpoints that does not include reincarnation. The case history is indicative of reincarnation, which is mostly stories from India, though there are a few others. We have possession of mortals by spirit entities. That is one of the few things I really said that this is that makes this book worth reading. It's an okay book, but it's not something that I would hunt down just for itself. But there is few chapters that discusses the difference between a spirit possession and reincarnation, and discusses basically what the difference is, but also if reincarnation can be a form of spirit possession. For basically, it's very hard to really know. If you suddenly get memories from an earlier life, does that mean that your soul was that person in an earlier life, or does it mean that that spirit, now a ghost, is possessing you? And it's a very interesting take on it, and worth reading this book for. Then you have historical cases of possession, which is the other chapter discussing this. Does hypnotism uncover past lives, which is quite critical to using past life regression, which I can definitely understand, because it's very easy to affect the person you're hypnotizing. Then you have William James, A Message from Beyond. And what I do like in this book is that it's nuanced. It discusses several different viewpoints to the topic, though it doesn't focus enough on the reincarnation part, since, while it, like I said, it presents several different ideas, it also sort of devotes just as much space to other spiritual ideas, which can mean that there's a little too little space for discussions about reincarnation. It does not. It's a very straightforward book, and as such, it fails to include some of the ideas where the ideas of ghosts and spirits and basically an afterlife can exist side by side of reincarnation. I, for example, don't believe we can have ghosts and spirits, or we can have reincarnation. I believe that both are possible. I believe there are afterlives, and I believe that there isn't just one, that what spiritual sphere you are connected to, as in what are your fate, determines a lot about what happens to you after life. And I also think that for some spirits, what lessons are needed will be in another life, while for some spirits, what lessons are now needed will be in an afterlife. So I think we can have both. And there are several different beliefs where you include that, and those are not discussed. I do like that it also includes a lot of the negative ideas when it comes to reincarnation. For example, if you have a strong belief in reincarnation and karma, as we can see in a lot of Indian societies, you then get pretty blasé about those that are born into very unfortunate circumstances. People that are poor, people that are born with mental or physical problems, and anybody that has a really hard time of life, because you see that, well, if people have a hard time of life, it's because they're punished for something they did in their past lives, so just let them suffer, it's their punishment. And I believe that's a very negative way to view it. Now, the author of this book is not for viewing it that way, but though she do present how a belief in reincarnation can lead to that kind of behavior. So I would say that this is a decent enough introduction to the topic. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it if you have read a lot about reincarnation earlier. If you are very well known to this and other spiritual topics when it comes to spiritualism, the afterlife, those topics, but it is a decent primer. So is it as so good that you should go through secondhand stores like a hound trying to trace down this book? Because I doubt it's in print anymore. No, but if you should happen to find it at your local used bookstore for not too much money, it's a decent read. And that is my review of Reincarnation for the Millions by Susy Smith. Hope you have enjoyed this review. Have a great day and blessed be.